You see, I grew up in rural northern Indiana, where each season brought new and exciting ways to forage for food. So in spring, I loved morel mushroom season. I loved to go to a certain spot in the woods every year and seek out those little tasty bits. In the summer, there were tons of wild black raspberry bushes that flanked the road that I grew up on. My siblings and I would search for those and gather as many as we could, and we'd put them in milkshakes and sundaes, and my parents would bake pies with them and all that. And then in the autumn, we would gather black walnuts. We had about an acre of black walnut trees, and we would sell those and also save some back for ourselves and dry them and have them. My dad was big into gardening, and so very fond memories of picking carrots right out of the ground, rinsing them and eating them, and just the aroma and texture of a tomato right off the vine. And we also had a mature asparagus patch when we moved into the property where I was as a kid, which can take years to grow and get much of a yield out of that. But we moved in and it was all ready to go, and so I loved to pick those, and we'd grill them with dinner in the spring. Some of my first jobs were on farms. When I was 12, I rode my bike every day after school to a local farm to do the evening milking. One summer in high school, my brother and I worked for a guy picking cantaloupes and watermelons. And we also had friends that had a poultry farm, and we would help them occasionally to clean and process the birds for market. So I'd like to talk to you about some of the benefits of eating local food. So there are several reasons. First of all, personal health. That's a big reason that people are looking at the hormones and chemicals that are in our food, and that's a real concern. Also, the environment. There's a big impact, a global impact of factory farming today. And also animal welfare, just the treatment of the animals that we eat. But those are great reasons, but they're not my primary reason for why I love to source and use local food. That is flavor. There's absolutely no comparing the flavor of food grown near your home in season to food that was shipped all the way across the world. So just a few examples. There was a farmer from Goshen, Indiana, up near where I'm from in Warsaw, and he invited me to do some farm-to-table dinners. And it was so exciting to I did them in all different seasons, sometimes spring, summer, fall, but he would communicate with me and let me know exactly what was going to be in season that week. So we'd kind of look at when exactly the event was. And so those dinners, farm to fork, farm to table, we would invite a bunch of people, and we'd have between 15 and 20 guests maybe in the loft of his barn, but he would supply all the produce. I'd source the meat and dairy and everything locally. But it was so cool to use those ingredients in the best time of year, in their prime, and some of the most fulfilling stuff I've done in my career. So in-season food is really, really, far better than anything else you'll get out of season because it's meant to grow at that time where you live. So the freshness of food there's no comparison there either. And I think of that farmer that I told you about, the cantaloupes. He taught me exactly how to pick cantaloupes. You would run your thumb along the stem where the stem meets the fruit, and if there were cracks and the stem came right off, that meant it was ripe. And the importance of that was that until they're actually ripe, the sugar hasn't come into them. That usually happens in the last day or two before they're ripe. So if you ever find a cantaloupe or watermelon in the grocery store, has the stem on it, and you get it home and you eat it and it's not very sweet, that's the reason why. And so that's obviously a benefit of getting it right in season near where you are. I've heard it kind of put in these terms before. If a friend called you and invited you to go join them for brunch, and you agreed, and you hopped on a plane, you went 2 hours on a flight, had an hour layover, another 4-hour flight, you called a cab, went to the restaurant, sat down and ate, you'd be exhausted. Your clothes would be wrinkled, you'd be ready for a shower. Your food is the same way. It's already tired by the time it gets to you. So here are some options for eating local food. Sorry. I got trigger happy there. First of all, raising your own animals, which is not realistic for most people, but I do know a few people that have some chickens that they'll raise a whole patch of them and then have them processed all at once and frozen, and then they can pull them out whenever they need, but at least they know what's been fed to the animals and all that. Planting a garden. The man did that in the book. I talked to you about my folks having a garden when I was a kid. That's something anyone can do. Even if you live in an in-town rural or urban area, there are some options for that as well, even a rooftop or balcony gardening. There's a great resource. I didn't get this up on a slide, but urbanorganicgardener.com, and there's awesome pictures and instructions on even things like how to grow a tomato plant in a 5-gallon bucket. So just a really cool resource. Anyway, foraging. We talked about that a little bit. You know, every part of the world has different things that are available in nature at all times that you can eat. You just have to know what they are and where you can find them. So I encourage you to look into that. My kids, to this day, they love to go in our yard and pick dandelion leaves and purslane and make a salad and throw some mulberries in there. So it's cool to see, you know, my son's doing the same thing I did as a kid. You can, also visit farmers markets where you can get to talk to the farmers and get to know exactly what it is that they're producing and how they do it. And even one step further is sourcing directly from the farm. So if you get to know the farmers at the market, you can ask to visit their farms, which they're always happy to have you do. And you can kind of see what they're feeding the animals and how they're treating them and what they're spraying on the crops and all that. And then you can also source directly from the farms. You know, just, hey, I'm looking for this, can I get it? So even if they're not at market that day, you can still usually get your hands on it. This is a picture that I took of a farm in Goshen where I was just going out to meet the farmer and kind of see what the deal was with his pork, why it was so good. And they have plots of woods that they would kind of rotate the parcels. And these pigs would forage in the dirt, which was just cool to see. I mean, that was what they were designed to do. That was, you know, that's how they ate years ago. So it was really cool. And they would finish them on acorns in the fall too, which makes the meat really tasty. Also, community-supported agriculture, or CSA, is like a food co-op where you get a box every week filled with seasonal produce, maybe meats, dairy, eggs. And so a lot of towns have those. I'm assuming Muncie does. That's really cool. It's fun. You can get other people involved in it. What I would do is get the box every week and then plan a meal around that and then cook that way. And so you know that everything you're eating is fresh, local, and in season. This is an example of one. Okay, also, getting out and supporting local restaurants. I mean, we know there's tons of chains, but there's a few of these restaurants are really making an effort to use local food. And I just encourage you to go out and support those guys. And you can usually find, if you find an independent restaurant, a lot of times they'll say on their website or on their menus the farms that they're sourcing from and all that, which is really important. Also, Edible Indie is it's a community of magazines, edible magazines. Edible Indie is in your area. I've got Edible Michiana up by me. And they do a great job at really focusing on and highlighting farms, farmers, CSAs, restaurants, markets that use local food. And it's a great resource. I've written for them and contributed some recipes. Also, here's a couple websites that can help you if you'd like to seek out eating local food on your own. So eatwild.com and localharvest.org are great resources. They're basically a directory online of all these restaurants, farms, and markets, CSAs, where you can go right in there, put in your zip code, and there'll just be a whole listing. So really cool. Okay, I hope that I inspired and informed you to seek out your food sources today, because when it comes to your food, find it, grow it, source it, know it. Thank you so much.